Hello, everybody, and good morning and happy Wednesday. Thank you all so much for joining, and hello there, Stephanie. Good to see you on here as well. We're going to go ahead and get started here in just a minute. I first want to just do a couple housekeeping, fun Zoom housekeeping items. We are in a webinar format, so you won't be able to yell at us or shout out or anything like that. Unless you really want to, we can promote you to do that. But go ahead and use the chat or the Q&A areas and the Zoom controls at any point here. If you want to ask any questions, just like our past master classes, we definitely want you to engage with us and make sure that we get any of your burning questions answered. But yeah, we'll keep our eye on that. We'll go ahead and just make sure that everyone can hear and see me and everything okay too. I do have to apologize. My son got me a little bit sick, so you're going to hear little nasally kind of resonance in the voice. But the good news is, unlike past master classes where it's mostly been me talking, it's going to be a lot less of me talking this time, because this is our first ever Learn from the Best edition of our master class, where we have our awesome guest, Stephanie Arevalo Rodriguez from Peninsula Healthcare District, who's going to be joining us and talking a little bit about all the great things that they do down there, I guess kind of down there from where we are, but all the great things they do down there to really prepare for some really awesome outreach campaigns that they do, but really the hard work and all of the preparation that kind of goes into that. Stephanie's a master at that. We really want to kind of learn a little bit from her today about that. But we're going to let a couple more folks kind of join in. Usually it takes a couple minutes just to kind of get the Zoom wheels rolling. But just in this meantime, I'll go ahead and remind everybody, hello, I'm Chris. If you need support for your Streamline website, feel free to reach out. You can do that, support@getstreamline.com, or you can use the little support feature in the website. But today is not about me or really even about Streamline, to be honest. In fact, most of what we're going to talk about today, I would say almost all of it, will have nothing to do with Streamline, because guess what, Stephanie, while their district is coming on board with us, they're not live at all. They've never really even used the Streamline side of things. So everything that we're going to be talking about today, really isn't about the tools, isn't really about Streamline itself. It's going to be just about how districts are, other districts out there, how they're just really doing things well and achieving at a high kind of rate. So welcome, Stephanie. I want to formally just say, hooray. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a high resolution photo of you there, so it's a little bit pixelated, but you still look great. That's the important part. But Stephanie is the business operations manager down there at the Peninsula Healthcare District. How long have you been in that role, Stephanie?
I have been at Peninsula Healthcare District for almost 5 years. I did start out as the executive assistant back in 2017 and started working my way up and hopefully be the director of operations next. So thank you, Chris, for having me today, and welcome everyone. I am very excited to be here, and just for everyone to know a little bit about Peninsula Healthcare District. We are a subsidiary special district here in the state of California, and we cover 6 cities in San Mateo County. So our mission, our values, and our vision are basically to just ensure everyone has access to healthcare, whether that's through prevention, education, or access, mental health services, senior services, dental services. So just a little bit about us. And in my role, I have many hats, not just communications, but also property management and some outreach with our community engagement director. So, and also a mom of 2 under 2. So that picture is before I had both of my kids. I don't look like that anymore. But yeah, that's just a little bit about the district and my role and myself. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. She was so kind to share some of her time with us, and I know definitely how busy you are, especially with 2 under 2. I can't even imagine. I've just got one that just turned 3, and so geez Louise. But you look great. Everyone's so happy that you're here. I certainly am, and I think we're going to have a really cool conversation here. So before we jump too far into that, I just wanted to kind of, I don't know, try to explain a little bit of the context, though, of what we're trying to do here. What do we mean by enhancing email engagement? At least what did I kind of originally mean, and hopefully what Stephanie will be sharing to some extent is it's really not just sort of an arbitrary term, but it's without being kind of silly, I guess, about this. And I shared this with Stephanie, so she's probably rolling her eyes before, but this totally reminded me of the Sun Tzu quote. If you guys know about the Art of War guy. You talked about how like you really have to prepare before you start going to war. You really, if you want to be victorious, you have to be, already be victorious before you even set off on the journey. And I think a lot with like email campaigns, with reaching out to the public, a lot of folks kind of just start with like, well, I want to start communicating today, but they don't have the emails in place. They don't have the infrastructure in place. They don't have the strategy. They don't kind of have a framework to even begin with. And so a lot of the time they're like, well, if I don't have that, I really can't get started. And then they never really begin. And so they kind of get stuck. And then the community never really hears about all the great things that they're doing. And so much of, of what special districts do, I think deserves to be told in the most effective way. And so I think it really is important to start kind of just preparing a little bit of how to both begin and to evaluate after you're kind of going through this process, sort of what works and what doesn't. So a lot of what I think we want to kind of structure today is, really just emphasizing prepare before you need to communicate. Don't wait until you have a rate increase or, need a new board member or have some big new project, but like kind of have that stuff in place. We're going to try to figure out where to start today, develop and refine some kind of process of gathering emails, define a concept for how to communicate, and just evaluate your performance from there. So most of this, we're going to kind of just talk to Stephanie about this. So Stephanie, tell me a little bit first though, before we jump too far into this, like what got you into special districts in like the first place? Like before you, like even kind of, before you even joined, kind of how did you even hear about special districts? What made you want to join them in the first place?
Yeah, so, my background was always in the medical and dental field. So prior to joining Peninsula Healthcare District, I was an administrator for a urology practice for a couple of surgeons. And the surgeon I was working for was retiring, and he actually used to be on the board of Peninsula Healthcare District.
Oh, wow.
So I used to collect, I'm sure you all know about board packets and agendas and meeting materials. And one day, I didn't hear from their executive assistant. And so I called and I said, hey, I haven't heard from Paul, what's going on? So they said, oh, he actually just left. We're looking for someone. My boss at the time was retiring. And so I applied for the position. I had no idea what special district was. And I always would drive by our office and would say, what is it that they do there? So obviously now in almost 5 years, I've learned there are many special districts, not just healthcare districts. So obviously I've always been in the medical field and always wanted to give back to my community, even if it's not in direct patient care. Now it's just more administrative, but that's pretty much how I ended up at Peninsula Healthcare District.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is kind of a small world sometimes, and the connections, you never know where you're going to find them. But how did you kind of get involved in some of the communication with like the public outreach? So you came in as like kind of an admin. At what point were they like, well, this is your job now, and kind of how did you handle that?
Yeah, so we were a small team of 3. Now we are 8, and so wearing multiple hats. And after having my kids, my CEO said, let's put you in this role of communication, since I'm so passionate about social media and Facebook and Instagram. My CEO has been there for 15 years and would basically do paper newsletters. And so I came up with this idea of, why don't we do something more innovative and just do an electronic version? Because these paper newsletters were sent out to our folks on mailing lists every quarter. I said, what if we just do an e-newsletter? We have a couple emails that we could send it to and just kind of start from there and think about some topics. So this started about 2 years ago. Oh, wow. Where we decided to do an e-newsletter. But of course, everyone thinks, well, how can I start an email list, or where do I gather these emails from? And so because of what we do and our partnerships with different nonprofits in the community, we started with an email list with our grantees. So we had about, I want to say, anywhere from 50 to 100 emails. Okay. And it was just from our partners. And then we started the e-newsletter about 2 years ago.
So when you came in, kind of an existing setup there, but only about 50 to 100 emails, it sounds like. So so with that, I mean, how did you kind of start to think about growing that? Because what did you tell me, what was the number of contacts you have today? So that was 2 years ago. What do you have today?
Yeah, so today we have 2,000
Whoa.
contacts, but 1,700 of them are subscribed. Obviously, with sending out a lot, we all are guilty of unsubscribing, right, to some emails. So out
Sure.
of the 2,000, we
Not
now
for the
have.
Streamline emails though, right, guys? We all love Streamline emails. Just kidding.
So we have 1,700 now, and the way that we started to build our list more was basically I was contacting all of our city councils. So I was either calling them or going on their website, looking at who's the latest elected mayor, city council members, school board members, teachers, because we are so involved in all of these different organizations and a lot of nonprofits. So just making sure that the people we want to reach are on our list and basically up to date. And just so everyone knows, my CEO still wants me to have more than my 1,700 or 2,000 contacts. It's still not good enough.
Yeah, I mean that to me is incredible too. That's when I heard that from Stephanie before, I was like, wow. I mean, that's really pushing it, I think, to the next level of like, some of our, some districts don't have any real email contacts. So I think it's interesting to hear how you can go from relatively few to a huge number just with a little bit of a little bit of time and patience. But I also thought it was really clever to think about the city council members, and like I was still kind of blown away. It seemed like such a good initiative to take, right? Like these city elected officials or county elected officials or whoever these leaders are in your community, like they are sometimes paying taxes for these services, like they are receiving these services, their family members, their friends, their other community members, they should be informed of this stuff, especially those folks. And I think that was always like the coolest thing that you said. And like, what was like like, where did that inspiration come from to kind of start doing that?
To start collecting emails, you mean, from other folks?
Yeah, from like
Or
especially those other like leader, like those the kind of
yeah.
identifying those specific influencers.
Yeah, so for us, we always wanted people to know who Peninsula Healthcare District is and why we exist. And so we thought, who is important out there that needs to know what we're doing as a governing agency? And so that's kind of where it started, where we want our mayors to know the work that we're doing. We're funded by property tax dollars. And so we just want everyone to know where their money is going and the great work that we're doing. And then also because city council members, mayors, board of supervisors, they also get the word out and they forward our e-newsletter to other organizations and folks that may need a service. They may need, for example, they're looking for a dental center. I mean, we have people on county lists who are unable to access dental care. And so we have an office, a clinic that takes anyone. So even if it's from our newsletter, they say, what is this Sonrisa's Dental Health Center? And so important people in the community will forward that information and share with other organizations. So that's kind of where the thinking was. We want those who have who know people who are in power to share what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a brilliant idea. Like it's like influencer marketing to some extent, right? But just really thinking locally about who those community influencers are, getting them to like kind of tell your story for you, like to help amplify that and kind of get that out there. That's awesome. I think, what else is there anything else that you've seen that works really well in terms of gathering? Because I doubt all 1,700 of those folks are mayors, although you do have a lot of towns and cities in that area. But is there other channels or other areas where you can kind of find good ways to gather those emails?
Yeah, so, we've also, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but when we started gathering our emails, we used to do, prior to COVID, a lot of in-person educational events. Yeah. And so if any of you folks out there are having any webinars or just any education or any sort of event where folks need to register, like for example, through Eventbrite, then we would collect all of those emails and import them into our list. Gotcha. The cool thing is, well, we're switching over to Streamline and Engage right now, but with all of these different platforms, you could tab or kind of put your list into different hats. One is public officials, one is members of the community, or members of your, city or whatever it is. But that's another way that we gathered emails. So anything that we registered or had an event for people that registered for, then we would save those emails. We do have also a fitness center. So all of our gym members are on our email list. So any program that you all may have or event, I would say add them to your list, and you just start growing it from there.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I think like definitely taking advantage of like those physical spaces and those, as we start to kind of open things back up, it seems like people will be much more, oh well, yeah, I'll sign this, registration sheet, or I'll sign this sign-in sheet. I'm glad just to be back in the room again, I think that is a great opportunity for sure. Is there any other information? I mean, we talk a lot about emails here. I mean, this is sort of the theme of the, the whole thing, but is there any other information you'd like to gather or that you find is useful? Or, I'm just, this is a spitball question. So if not, then just say, move on, Chris. But is there anything else that kind of jumps out that you think is really helpful?
I think organizing the emails, that is a big project, but organizing them when you're sending out an e-newsletter or e-blast is very helpful, just because there may be something that your special district is doing that you just want your city council members to know, or just your mayors, or maybe it's just directed at school members. And so organizing the list is very helpful, because you in any platform could just send out your e-newsletter directed at, one particular organization or list. And I know we're going to go into more content, but I would say for sure organizing your emails if possible, and just, having people subscribe. I'm doing all these marketing campaigns just through social media, having that on your e-newsletter or e-blast as well, subscribe, forward this. That's another way to collect more emails, and just doing those little mini campaigns is very helpful.
So well, we might be getting a little ahead of it. You mentioned something that was really interesting to me. Like, have there been any of those little mini campaigns that have worked well, like a forward this campaign, or like anything like that that's worked?
Yes, it has worked. Mainly because we boost our social media posts. So right now on Facebook, we have about 1,100 followers, but when you boost your post, you can have a higher reach. So sometimes we'll have a reach of 20,000 or 40,000. And so, we'll say, okay, how many from here may subscribe? It just takes one or two to add to our list. And then you could kind of track, okay, where did you hear about us? Through Facebook. So those campaigns have worked, and I need to do more, because like I mentioned, the 1,700 is not good enough yet. But I am doing more, and just having it on the e-newsletter, you could check, if someone's forwarded and subscribed. And now with that, we're switching over to Streamline. We are going to have a little pop-up section or somewhere on our website that will say subscribe to our newsletter. So, hopefully we'll get more emails that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a couple good questions come in. So I want to just kind of get through those really quick and see if we can get those answered. They're for you, obviously, they're not for me. Rachel Willis asked, how do you keep your emails from going into the recipient's spam or junk folder? And that might get into a little bit of the content and strategy that we'll get into. I'm just curious, because I think you guys are using MailChimp right now. How do you guys for that?
We are using MailChimp, and there's a section that says subscribed, or this person provided me or gave me access to send them this email. So I have everyone checked off on that box, and I believe it shouldn't go to their spam. I haven't heard of any emails going to the spam. I've tested it on, of course, my entire family to make sure it doesn't go. So I think if that box is checked off, then it shouldn't go to their spam folder.
Okay, cool. So there might be like a technical setup. We just have to make sure that that's in place. And then Diana Garcia asked, when collecting emails on Eventbrite or through program signups, like, do you specifically ask, would you like to subscribe for updates? Or are you more just like, well, you signed up, and so we're just going to kind of assume you want to read this?
Yeah, when we did the in-person events, we just signed them up ourselves.
Gotcha.
And so one of the ways that we tagged, as I mentioned, or organized the list was, for example, we had a 70th anniversary event. And so when I uploaded those emails into MailChimp, then I said all of these folks were from our 70th anniversary event. So if they did, respond or email back or say, how did you get my email as an
Gotcha.
example, then I know to respond to them that they attended our 70th anniversary event. And that's how we have their email.
Did that happen very often? Were people like,
No.
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, they probably said, oh yeah, I went, because we have a lot of free events before prior to COVID. And so, with different speakers and authors that, folks were dying to see or hear speak. And so I think for the most part, they would remember, but obviously we still do have about 300 unsubscribed or people who have unsubscribed in the past couple of years for various reasons. And I think sometimes I want to say it's an accident because you do want to know about us.
Right. Yeah.
But
well,
yeah.
We feel the same way here sometimes. Sometimes our salespeople come out and be like, I really think this customer should not unsubscribe. They would really benefit, but it happens sometimes. Yeah. So we talked a little bit about content so far, and I'm kind of just curious because you even mentioned the importance of sort of categorizing some of the communication, making sure that you don't just sort of send everything to everybody. You really kind of make sure you're focusing the right information to the right people. How do you figure that out? Is that just a guess that you have? Are you kind of evaluating? So have you seen certain things? What helps you to make those decisions?
Yeah, it's really teamwork between myself and my CEO, and just really evaluating what it is that we're sending out and who needs to know about it. So, if our board just passed a resolution, or if it's a webinar on parent education, who is it that we're trying to reach? So just really thinking about what our goal is. For example, in our content piece for our e-newsletter, one thing that was recommended to us by our consultants was to only have 5 topics that you're going to cover, because in the beginning, we would notice that we just would go on and on and on with text, and
Right.
we just need to get to the point, have nice photos, and have people tell our story. And so just really evaluating and strategizing what it is that we're going to send out and who's important in knowing. And sometimes, at least for our monthly e-newsletters, it's really everyone, our entire list. We want everyone to know, because even if it may not benefit one person, they can forward it to someone else that it may benefit from whatever it is that we're promoting or sharing.
Yeah, I have to laugh because I could definitely take your advice on getting to the point in the newsletters, and I think anyone who's read any of our monthly updates knows I can go on for a little bit, and it definitely brevity is always preferred. But let me, if you don't mind, I wanted to share just an example of your most recent newsletter. If there's one you prefer, I can kind of hop over there. But I wanted to kind of just illustrate the 5-point theory that you kind of outlined there, where you kind of really do follow, like there's, kind of some general stuff at the bottom, but it really feels like you've got your 5 kind of bullet points here. So yeah, anything about like the structure or anything like that you think works well, or that, really has been effective for you guys?
Yes, and I can speak on the latest newsletter that we sent out. We welcome all to our health and fitness center. So I collect all Google Analytics for 3 of our websites, and I was noticing that we weren't having just a lot of drive to our health and fitness center website. And so I spoke to our fitness center director and I said, look, I need more people to visit our health and fitness center website. I'm going to do just a little test, a little marketing push on our newsletter and see if more folks will, just click on the health and fitness center website. So you'll see here, we always have a link that will direct them to the website or whatever it is that we're referring to. So after looking at the analytics for this e-newsletter, the health and fitness center website was the most opened or clicked on link. So it was kind of an internal goal that I had. I didn't really share it with anyone besides the health and fitness center director, but I said the text that we put was, just an easy read for people to know these are the classes that we offer. If you want to, schedule a free consult or get a visitor pass, here's the phone number and then our website. And then these are real photos of our members. So we're trying to not use a lot of stock photos and just use, people that actually go to the gym. So my little goal actually worked in this last e-newsletter, and it was the highest opened page or link in the e-newsletter.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's brilliant, right? I mean, you go from identifying a problem where it's like, hey, we're not seeing as much attention here as we think we need or we deserve. Let's try something to see if it works. And then it ends up becoming like a huge success. And I think I also heard something else that was really cool, which is just like you generally try to include, some kind of link back to sort of whatever on the website that you want to feature, give them more information, and then you can really track those clicks as a kind of a measure of engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. Anything else that kind of you feel like really works about the newsletter or kind of the structure of this? It seems like you have like subscribe links and social, and do those get a lot of attention, or do those help at all with anything?
A lot of the Facebook does. I've noticed in our YouTube, a lot of people click on our Facebook to look at our posts, and YouTube. So obviously I want more subscribe here's, and but I think the structure of it right now, it works well.
Yeah.
It may still look like we have a lot of text, but I promise you we used to have more. And also one thing that was advised to us is to really have others tell your story. And if that's, like I mentioned, including real photos and just quotes, and then just a little background information and a link for folks to read more, I think that's pretty much all you need on the e-newsletter.
Yeah, I love it. Look at this guy. He's having a great time. I want to, you want to join him. You want to have, and you got a quote right there. I think this is exactly what you're talking about. And it worked out great.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Let me see here. Now I've got all my questions all over the place. One of the things I was curious about actually was, because we talked a little bit about newsletters. You also do, I think, blasts. You call them e-blasts. And that's more for like announcements and things like that, right?
Yeah. So for example, we partnered with this organization called the Parent Venture. And so they do weekly webinars. And basically, if we, want to increase the registration for that webinar, then we'll do just what we call an e-blast. And this e-blast is just a one topic, whether that's a webinar, an event, or announcement, or if your board passed something, a resolution or whatever it may be. And so we just have, a quick photo and then the information and the registration link. And I'm sure you're going to touch on this, Chris, but I can go into just like timing and open rates.
Sure. Yeah, go for it. I mean, don't assume I'm going to remember all that. Go if you think it's really cool. I'd say just start talking about it. Yeah.
Okay. So with the e-newsletter and e-blast, one thing I mentioned to Chris is that I've tested basically what time of the day, what day of the week works best in terms of open rate. So if you're sending out an e-blast for an event or a webinar that is next week, and you have a goal that you want to reach, 200 folks to register, for example, what we've looked at is what time and day of the week works best for more people to open the e-newsletter or the e-blast, and what is the highest click rate. And so I've tested every day of the week, different times of the day. What works for our special districts and our newsletter and email list is 5 o'clock on a Friday.
I couldn't believe that.
It's the craziest time. And I will tell you all, when we started this 2 years ago, our open rate was 20%, around there.
Yeah.
Which I've heard from different folks, anything over 25 is good. If you have at least 25% of your list opening your emails. We're now ranging between 40 and 47% average, which I guess everyone says that's amazing.
It is amazing. It's super amazing.
But it's at 5 o'clock on a Friday, and I don't know what it is. I've tested it where, one of my colleagues said, Steph, can you just send this e-blast on Thursday at 5 o'clock? And I said, it messed up my analytics because I'm at 38% instead of 40%. So it's just the timing, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would never have guessed that Friday at 5 p.m. would be the time. I mean, it kind of makes, you can make an argument for it, sure, but it's also like, I certainly don't want to be checking my, my work emails or my emails at 5, on Friday. I'm usually trying to unwind at that point, but I guess it makes sense. So we had a couple questions that came in too, which, by the way, congrats on 47%. I think like we would fall out of our chair if we ever sent out an email that got a 47% open rate. That would be pretty amazing. And I want to learn a little bit more about that too. I want to make sure I remember the questions. Did you completely stop paper newsletters? The staff from Steech asked.
Yes, we stopped the paper copies.
Okay, so no more. Did that discontinue like right away as you switched over to the
as we did yes, as we switched over to e-newsletters, then no more paper copies. I know my colleague who started this paper copy version before I went into the e-newsletter, she had to pay for a list of folks within our district. And so that's why we were mailing them. And then we just switched over to e-news. So we don't do paper copies anymore.
Did anyone like get upset about that? Were they like, I want my...
No, we didn't have a way of tracking if they even read it, if they even opened it, or if they just threw it away. So my CEO is about the data and the analytics, and she wants to know if people are reading this. So, with MailChimp, and I'm sure Engage has this too, I could see the names, how many times they've opened it and forwarded and read it. So, and clicked on what links. So we just don't do the paper copies anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of cool if there was a way, right, where like as soon as they open the envelope, it like sends a plume of smoke up in the air, and you could be like, oh, like they opened it, but otherwise, like, how would you know? It'd be pretty tough. Well, cool. Diana Garcia had another question. Do you know the demographics for the e-blast, or like who the audience is? Like, do you have information on them, I guess?
Yeah, so we, because I have the list organized, I do know, who the mayors are, who the teachers are, or the school members. We can kind of guesstimate the age, but we don't know specifics about, their age or maybe the city or ethnicity, but we could gather that information through our Google Analytics from our websites. That information I do have from our website, but not for our e-newsletter specifically.
You mentioned before about the, in terms of increasing the open rates, and part of that you think, or I mean, it sounds like maybe mostly you think it's due to the time you sent. Do you think any of that's due to subject lines, content? Have you made any tweaks to any of that and seen an improvement, or maybe a downfall to a certain extent?
Yeah, definitely not just the time, but after we only started doing 5 topics, because it was just a long, I could do 7, 8, 9 topics. Sure. And so just doing the 5 topics has worked. The e-blast definitely has worked as well, because it's just a one stop, one quick read, but definitely the time, the content, not so much text, and then having those photos and quotes. Gotcha.
Okay, cool. We talked a little bit about this too, in terms of like what metrics you look at. Your CEO obviously cares a lot about the data. Are there other metrics that are really important either to you or to your boss or to the board that you really use to demonstrate, hey, this is working, or hey, this is not working?
Yeah, I think for sure just the open rates, the clicked, click links. And then what we do is we really compare quarter to quarter. So I present a quarterly communications report just to see, obviously, the comparisons from quarter 1 and quarter 2, but then also looking at the topics, because what we've noticed is, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month, we always have a pretty high engagement this month because of the topics. So also comparing what topics had a higher open rate is important for us as we're looking at our analytics.
Are there any other jump out that have gotten really good open rates?
A lot of our youth posts, or because we're opening a mental health clinic through Alcove Stanford, and so a lot of our youth engagement has had a high open rate and engagement that I've noticed a lot. And then also our dental center, because we serve a lot of the underserved, and people don't know about this dental center, that we take anyone, whether you have insurance or you don't have insurance. And so things that people in the community need, and are really curious about. I've noticed when we promote our programs or youth posts, we do have a lot more engagement.
Interesting. Those kids, man, they have so much energy. Well, I think in terms of questions I had sort of prepared that I wanted to run through, I think we've touched on most of those. I know definitely some of the folks, in the webinar here may have other questions, so feel free to start putting those in the chat and the Q&A. But Stephanie, I also want to just leave some room here for you to, if you have other things that you want to express or other ideas you think that have worked well, other bits of advice you think that others might benefit from, I'd love to give you an opportunity to share those if you have them.
Should we wait to see if we have any more, if we have any questions?
I was kind of trying to delay to give them.
You want me just to jump right in?
Yeah, because they kind of have to, you start typing them all out. Well, let me ask you one question while we're maybe waiting for some questions that come in. Is you mentioned, using a consultant at some point. Is that something that you recommend for districts, or is there certain conditions you think need to be met first, or what would you say there?
Yeah, we in the past have used a PR consultant, but as our special district grew, as I mentioned, we were a team of 3 and now we're 8 and growing into, 3 more positions, which is still fairly small, but maybe a lot of special districts are like this, I'm not sure. But I feel like the previous people that we worked with, we just kind of outgrew them. And so we needed another consultant who can help us not just with communications, but also press and media. And so we've used a company called Full Air Strategies, and they have been helping us in the last 2 years, which I think with their advice has really increased our visibility in the community, and also all of this data that's so important to us, and making sure we engage folks and reach the community members that we want to reach. They have helped us. And of course, with their connections in the community, we've also been able to do interviews with different TV stations. And,
Awesome.
they don't just help with just communications in terms of like newsletters or social media, but we've also been on different news stations, or if we have, we've had vaccination clinics, they have their folks that can come out and interview our board or our CEO. So they've really helped us a lot. I would highly recommend, if you're able to, fiscal year,
it may not be for everybody, but I think it's definitely something that, it's good to, I think, for people to know kind of, hey, this could be beneficial in a lot of cases. Well, cool. We got one question that came in, which I think kind of relates to that actually, is, do you do any other outreach? And I think the answer is yes, but I think detailing that might be interesting. But do you do any outreach to those who don't subscribe to the newsletter?
Basically just social media. So just Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If we don't do an e-newsletter, we post on social media 3 times a week. So that was also an advice, something advised to us by our consultants, is have a set schedule. If you're not doing e-newsletters or e-blasts yet, just have a set schedule on your social media platform. So we post at a certain time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. On our social media to try to engage folks. And and also I should mention this, some of the content that we use in our e-newsletter are things that we've also posted on Facebook. So whether if you're just trying to get the word out about a program or an event, we've posted it on Facebook and Instagram already, and then now we're posting it again in our e-newsletter. So we like to cross-use our content, because it's a lot of work. It takes me hours and hours and hours to put this together, and then uploading it to our website and that sort of thing. So not just e-newsletters. Obviously we have 1,100 followers that may not be on our email list. So social media platforms for sure.
That is awesome. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you work so hard on this content, you definitely want to put it to good use and put it in as many channels as you can. You mentioned Facebook does really well. Are there any other ones that either don't do as well as you kind of hope sometimes, or ones you wish you could do a little bit better in, or something like that?
Yeah, Instagram, I will say we just really launched it this year. We were just focused on Facebook, and a lot of folks, maybe not the younger folks, they're not really into Facebook. And so we now have a youth outreach specialist who also tells us what the younger generation likes. And so she's like, the 20-year-olds or the young 20-year-olds, they're not on Facebook anymore. And we want to engage younger folks, especially because what we're doing right now is opening a mental health clinic for the, teens to 25-year-olds. So, just strategizing what platform do we need to use to get the word out. And in this case, that's why we started with Instagram. I'm sure we'll end up with like TikTok videos. I'm not going to do TikTok videos.
I was going to say, you know where this is going. Don't act like you don't know that you're doing TikTok.
Yeah. So
the dance is going, because that's going to be you.
So I know that, Facebook obviously has worked, and we've had, a good list of folks over the years, but then growing it to Instagram, and, even if it's just having people reshare your post, for me, that's huge. Posting us on their story. It's just the little things that just keep, having your information go out and just get the word out. So I think, obviously we still have room to grow, but with any social media platform, just really strategizing who your audience is for, let's just say, the specific program or event.
Yeah, no, I think everyone has room to grow, but what you guys have done, I think, is just outstanding. Like, and honestly, it sounds silly, but it makes me so proud to work with folks that I think have achieved things like this. And I know how much other stuff you work on, and I know how busy our districts are. But when we hear about like these really great achievements in terms of, really telling the story well, learning, kind of developing that process, just having a structure in place that's repeatable, right? You got the monthly newsletter, you got your 5 topics, you have your different tactics you use to grow your list over time, the types of people you identify, and you just kind of keep that machine rolling. Like, same thing with social media, right? Just 3 days a week, just kind of make sure that stays consistent. And before you know it, you're going to have a really big following and a lot to share. So I just want to put up some takeaways on here that we kind of just reviewed. I think definitely highlighting and looking at who those people are in your community that are important, that need to know, is really important, and use them and other influencers to tell the story. Using events and registration to gather more information so you can get that sign up info and that contact info. Make sure to keep your information organized so that you can segment some of the communication you have and know some of the demographics there. Categorizing communications, using the 5 parts to a newsletter. If you don't have a structure already, I think that's a great place to start. And then just you can kind of build off of that. Friday at 5 p.m. we heard was maybe the best time to send. I think that's insane, but maybe we're going to try it now too and see if it works. Using quotes and real photos. We always encourage folks to use real photos across everything. We know it's tough sometimes, but it definitely does look good. Use data and consider consultants. Did I miss anything on here, Stephanie, that you want to make sure like people know, or kind of just as a parting kind of bit of wisdom here?
I think you got all of the takeaways, and I'm just really excited for everyone who, don't feel discouraged. Of course, I was discouraged thinking we only had 50 emails or 100, and now, we're up to 2,000. So I'm sure after this, you'll be able to think, how many, emails do I have in my database that I could include on my list? So it's possible. People, we've been around 73 years. And people still don't know who we are, but we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. And I think, everyone is able to achieve it. So thank you so much, Chris, for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I've always wanted the masterclass to be a lot less of me talking, a lot more of a venue for really you guys. I mean, like, when we say learn from the best, like, I don't want to, I'm sure Stephanie wouldn't say that she's the best. I think she's the best, but really you guys all are the best to learn from each other. I think you guys are the best people to teach each other the things that you do well, how you do it, the strategies that worked and that haven't worked. So we want to do more of this. Stephanie, thank you for being kind of the bravest one to do it first and to really step in, and I think absolutely rock it. Just thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining and for your great questions and your time and attention. Again, we will be recording this and sending this all out. So if you weren't able to take notes or anything, don't worry, we'll have that available to you. But thanks, that'll wrap it up for today. Just again, Stephanie, I can't appreciate you enough, but I hope all of you have a great rest of your week, and stay safe out there. Bye, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.